Hi, my name's Felicia Rashida, also known as Miss Tell It As It Is. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what I liked about Cezanne's novel, Journey of a Sister. Because you know my favourite topic to talk about is sex, right? Well, that's what I liked about the book. The sex scenes in it. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have been able to finish the book because that's what kept me engaged in the story. I thought it was really clever of Cezanne because we're all just waiting for the next sex scene. But in between, she's teaching us our history, biology. Like, I never knew anything about melanin before I read her book. I'm not going to go into anything about it because Letitia said she wants to cover that topic. My favourite topic to talk about is sex, so I'm going to stick to that. So the first thing I want to talk about is this whole thing to do with sex before marriage. Luckily, I wasn't raised in the church, so I didn't have all that indoctrination going on in my head. But Cezanne said every time she had sex, she felt bad about it. But as she said in her book, sex is the most beautiful gift that God gave us when it's done properly. But religion says you're committing fornication if you're not married. So Cezanne raised the question in her book, what is marriage in God's eyes? Because we're made to believe it's walking down the aisle in a white dress, putting on a ring, signing a register, going on a honeymoon, but none of these have got anything to do with God. So let's go to Genesis, to the first man and woman, supposedly. It says Adam knew his wife. They could have just said Adam knew Eve, but they made it very clear that the very act of having sex with someone makes them your husband or wife. Because there were no churches or registry offices in the Garden of Eden, was there? So what does knew mean anyway? How did Adam and Eve become husband and wife? They had sex, innit? Knew means they had sex. That's why Jesus said to the woman at the well, you've had 5 husbands. Not because she married 5 men, but she'd had sex with 5 men. So now the question is, how many husbands or wives do you have? I'm not going to ask you to put your answer in the comments below because many of us will be too embarrassed to say. The point I'm making is, this whole act of getting married in a church or registry office has nothing to do with God. It's some big money-making scam by our governments. Cezanne was right to raise this topic in her novel. And in the second edition, she even explained what fornication really means because it's got nothing to do with sex before marriage. You know what? Let me just read it to you because it's not in the first or the third editions. Since the New Testament was originally written in Greek, Suzanne's research led her to the Greek language. She was surprised to learn that the Greek word for fornication was porneia, which means to prostitute. Cezanne suspected that this might be where the term porn came from, since they both related to the sex industry. Porneia was the activity of porne or prostitutes and literally meant whoredom. Anyone who sold their body for money or goods was called a whore or a harlot. But what does all this have to do with sex before marriage? So now you don't have to bother to read the second edition because that was the main major change. Plus she added years 12 and 13 and they're in the third edition, innit? So in year 1 of the story, Cezanne feels bad every time she has sex with Charles, despite how beautiful the experience is. So she asks, how can something that feels so right be so wrong? And then in year 2, Suzanne undoes the indoctrination she'd received around sex before marriage when she reads Conversations with God, book 1. Because in that book, God explains that the best way to know if something is of him is to go by your feelings. So if it feels good, do it, basically. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out there and have sex with loads of people because I already explained that every time you have sex with someone, they become your husband or wife in God's eyes. Your body is a temple. That's why I don't have sex anymore because I think I've accumulated enough husbands. Do you know what I mean? Now, luckily, there is a way to divorce them spiritually which I can't get into in this video, but it's a simple ritual to break the soul tie. I'll make a separate video on how to do it. But I digress. Nowadays, being a virgin isn't even talked about. Young girls, you need to understand that your virginity is your most prized possession. It's like a pearl of great price. Don't go by today's standards. Being a virgin makes you very valuable. Think of your hyphen like a diamond. You wouldn't just give that to anybody, would you? I'm not even suggesting wait until you get married, because I don't believe in marriage any more than Cezanne does. What I am suggesting is waiting until you're in a truly solid, loving relationship. Let him prove to you how much he loves you before you give it up to him. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to last forever, but at least you would have given your virginity to someone who truly loves you, and the memory will be a happy one. Now, I can't even get into the topic of young girls having their virginity stolen from them in this video, but I do want to cover it because it happened to me. So let me know if you want me to do a video on the topic of. Nowadays, so many young girls are allowing their nush to be abused. These young boys are watching porn and thinking that's the way to have sex. Why do you think you can watch it free? It's breaking down our society. I wish someone had told me this when I was young. But not to worry, I'm your online auntie, here to help make sure you don't make the same mistakes I did. Now, there's so much more I want to tell you on the topic of sex and the power of sexual energy. And I might even talk about sexual deviancy in church due to the suppression of sexual energy. But because I'm aware of the time, I think I might have to do another video. Would you like that? Let me know in the comments. Now, while you're waiting for part 2, download the ebook, listen to the audiobooks. Oh, that reminds me, Cezanne said to tell you that this weekend she is going to upload year 1 of the audiobook for you to listen to help get you started on your journey of self-discovery. Just in case you're thinking it can't be that good because Audible didn't accept it, listen to it and judge for yourself. It's in 2 parts and they should both be up by this weekend. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, share it, like, subscribe, and tell your friends Auntie Felicia's here to help. Toodaloo!